And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast, your chance to find out what's happening and what are people talking about in Podcast Central at EWTN.com/radio. I'm Ace McKay, ready to host you through a couple of shows, one of which is our newest to the podcast family. We're excited to welcome the Ruth Institute Podcast, as Professor Margaret McCarthy has been teaching at the John Paul II Institute since 1992, and this week she's bringing her expertise and panel together to talk about how children of divorce can find healing. We'll get to that as we start things this week on Catholics Coast to Coast.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse, founder and president of the Ruth Institute. On today's episode of the Dr. J Show, I'm very excited that we're going to be talking about a very important topic, the topic of adult children of divorce and how divorce affects children for a lifetime. But I'm happy to say that we have some people who are doing something positive about it. And as most of you know, there aren't many people out there besides the Ruth Institute who are even talking about it, much less doing something about it. So I think this is going to be a very exciting and helpful episode that you're going to be watching for years to come, seriously. My two guests today are both associated with the John Paul II Institute for Marriage and Family. Dr. Margaret McCarthy is a professor over there, and Mr. Alex Wolf has a master's degree from the John Paul II Institute, and he is now the director of the Office of Marriage and Family Life for the Catholic Diocese of Arlington. Margaret and Alex, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Happy to be here.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm excited about the project that you guys have cooking, and it sounds like you both are coming at this issue from a little bit different directions. So I want to start by asking each of you about your respective work that you're doing in this area. I'm going to start with Margaret. And Margaret, could you talk to us a little bit about your new book called Recovering Origins, what it is and how you came to write it?
Recovering Origins is the result of a 10-year project that was really initiated back in 2010 by Carl Anderson when he started to see a series of books written by adult children of divorce who were sort of breaking the silence. They had pulled the duct tape off their mouths and were starting to say things that were cutting through the sort of decades-long narrative about the good divorce, and it's better to have a good divorce than a bad marriage, and so on. People like Stephanie Stahl, who wrote The Love They Lost, Elizabeth Marquardt, The Inner Lives of Children of Divorce, Two Worlds, Andrew Root, The Children of Divorce, The Loss of Family is a Loss of Being, Between Two Worlds. All of these books struck him, and he thought, being effectively the dean of the John Paul II Institute, we ought to sort of pay attention to this, both because there was a pastoral need, but I think at first we thought these people have something to say to us and to the world. And so we started to engage with them. There was a conference in Rome. I think it was called Healing Wounds. And then we, on our side, began to brainstorm with a whole variety of people. We got together with Monsignor Byrne, who is now Bishop Byrne in Massachusetts, on Capitol Hill. He's kind of a pastoral genius, and he gathered together a group of students, some of whom were our students. Dan Mayola was in that first group. I'm certain of that, together with others. And he gave us this idea that, we ought to really take seriously what these voices were saying. And what were they saying? What was so interesting to Carl Anderson, and then, of course, to us, was that they were saying something, not just breaking the silence, but their message was very deep, if you will, ontological or metaphysical. They weren't just talking about the lost sort of social goods that a marriage gives you, like money and education and access to college, but the loss of a primal ground, the loss of being, the loss of home, being torn in two, being split like an atom, profoundly theological and philosophical sort of judgments about what divorce had sort of cost them. And so Monsignor Burns said, there's something interesting that these adult children of divorce is saying, but Christianity, what's interesting about it is their they're speaking to how bad divorce is, finally. Parents are an image of God the Father. And so when the image is broken, the repercussions are serious and far reaching. At the same time, parents are the image, they're not the archetype. And so ultimately, God is the origin of our being. And because of the church, because of Christ Jesus, that archetype has entered the world and established his kingdom here and poured new water into our world. Indeed, poured a new fatherhood through the motherhood of Mary. So why don't, he said, Monsignor Burns said, why don't you work with the Our Father, the Lord's Prayer, as a way of pastorally meeting the needs of adult children of divorce? Since
I'm gonna ask you to. We're gonna bracket that part. We're gonna come back to that for sure. But I want to bring Alex into the conversation now. So yeah, no problem. Thank you. This is important stuff.
Guide me.
So now, yeah. So Alex, tell us about your program. I think you are involved with the Lifegiving Wounds program. And let me just say, Dan and Bethany Mayola are friends of the Ruth Institute. They've spoken at our conferences. I've interviewed them on this program. So our followers have a little bit of familiarity with it. But is that where you come into the picture, Alex? Have you been involved in that program, or do you have other things you're up to as well?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to connect some dots from what Margaret was just sharing. So the John Paul II Institute had gathered together a lot of this research. There was this huge conference in 2012 under the same title, Recovering Origins. In about 2015, Dan and Bethany Miola decided, well, let's take some of this research and start a kind of local retreat for children of divorce. That was also under that same title, Recovering Origins. It was a very small operation at first, but it quickly began to get very popular, just, a little bit more than just in Washington, D.C. And so by 2018, Arlington had kind of heard word about it and was interested in bringing at least one retreat to take place in Arlington. By that time, I was working here in the Marriage and Family Office as kind of a program specialist, like the marriage prep guy. And so I had known Dan and Bethany from JP2 Institute. I had Margaret McCarthy as a professor. Funny story, I arrived at the Institute in 2012, right when all of this research was being, brought to, this conference. And so I had gone, I'll share more about my story perhaps in a little bit, but I went to the Institute because my parents divorced. That happened while I was in college. And so I had all of these questions about marriage and family, and I went to JP2 Institute looking for answers. And here I arrive, and there's this huge, conference and all of this research being published. So all of my questions obviously were answered. But so anyway,
but it almost makes it almost seems like it's divinely ordained that you ended up there, that you in particular ended up there in particular at this particular time. Yeah, probably coincidence. I'm sure. God had nothing to do with it. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Dan and Bethany started offering these retreats locally in 2015. By 2018, I was ready in my heart. I had known about the retreats, but it took me a few years before I was ready. But then by 2018, I was working here. I went on the retreats and found it just so eye-opening. And of course, this is, I was coming from a place of where I knew kind of intellectually what the research was saying, but it took going on the retreat to really allow our Lord to enter this wound in my heart and to really connect with others and really see that, there was hope for some real healing. It wasn't just I had to know certain things. I really was able to find a turning point, I like to say, by going on this retreat. So anyway, I went on the retreat in 2018, but then afterwards I had such a great experience. I said to Dan, all right, Dan, you got to help me. I want to start a local operation in Arlington. We can kind of do a regional diocesan kind of program. And so I worked closely with Dan to do a kind of local chapter, if you will. So we have our own retreats in Arlington. It's an all Arlington team. A priest from Arlington who's a child of divorce, counselor from Arlington who's a child of divorce. And we also run a book club. So it's a whole blossoming operation. And now I sometimes travel with Dan to other places around the country to help other dioceses start up local operations like we have.
So your approach is very hands-on, practical approach. You're out there mixing it up with the children of divorce. I want to turn back to Margaret for a moment, because you were starting to tell us something about what I found to be very interesting, a way of thinking about these matters using the Lord's Prayer as kind of a template. So, but before we do that, it seems like maybe I should say, maybe this is a good time to say, what Recovering Origins is a book. Is there something besides, in addition to the book, is there something else? Are you running programs as well, or is this the heart of it?
Clarify.
Yes, please.
This book, the relation between this book and Life-Giving Wounds is like two branches from a common tree. There was this intuition of Carl Anderson back in 2010, conferences, the attempt to write a pastoral program, many rewrites, piloting of programs that involved Dan Mayola and Alex. They then began to get into the retreat business. I put that in quotes because I highly esteem their work. We're not in the business of running retreats or starting, chapters and whatnot. So they're mixing it up. You're absolutely correct. But however, Recovering Origins, the book you're holding in your hand, is in part the fruit of many of their insights. So the difference is simply this: between a retreat you can go on that's guided, you go for a weekend or perhaps several weekends. This book, on the other hand, is really something ideally for an individual to use on his or her own.
I see.
So if there's no or system, yeah.
So if there's no retreat available in your area, by golly, you can get the book and get started.
Exactly. I mean, not everybody wants to go to a retreat, but they're not mutually exclusive either. And really, they're mutually informed.
Yes.
Dan was very much involved in some of the drafting of some of these sections in Recovering Origins. And again, Alex's work, piloting it, offering advice is part and parcel of the text in the book. Let me just say, I am the editor of this book, but it's under the auspices of the John Paul II, and that's a way of saying that it's sort of the fruit. It's in my name, it's in my pen, but it's the fruit of many gatherings, many different attempts.
I see. It actually says that on the title page. Margaret Harper McCarthy, under the auspices of the Pontifical John Paul II Institute for the Studies on Marriage and Family at the Catholic University of America. Right. So this is very much a team effort.
Absolutely.
You have both pointed to something that I want to pick up on. Okay, Margaret pointed to the depth of the wounds that the kids have, and when you started saying it's more than the social goods, what went through my mind as a social scientist, right? We've been measuring this stuff for years, right? I mean, for a long time, people have been aware that divorce is hard on children because they're measuring all sorts of things like school performance and psychological health measures, and just a whole lot of indicators are showing that divorce is hard on kids. But what you guys are doing is saying, let's get to the root of that. Why is that? What is this that's generating all of that, kind of psychic chaos and social disability, you could say? And it's metaphysical in a sense, right? I mean, it comes to the roots of things that when your mom and dad are not together, that does something much more profound than change your income or what neighborhood you live in. There's just much more involved there. So Margaret, why don't you speak to that first? And then I have a very particular question to ask Alex about this question. Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, well, just as the world came to be by virtue of a communion of persons, and can be radically affirmed, that is loved, but also in its distinct singularity, so too a human being is brought into the world, in fact, by virtue of a unity of two. So our existence is predicated on a unity of two. I mean, that's why we exist, because two came together. And, there's a kind of pressure in modernity. One of the dogmas in modernity, the public dogmas, are hard at work to attack that, because it suggests a kind of radical dependence at the origin of our existence. And so there are attempts to sort of say, well, that really doesn't matter. That's just in the past. Let's forget the past. Let's just move towards the future. At the end of the day, yeah, children are born, but in the end, they're resilient and they can go forward and make that, make their own futures. That's the kind of dogma we all are living under. And children of divorce are sort of giving a lie to that. In fact, they're proving how metaphysically important it is that their parents remain united. That not that they just release them into the air, but that they're a kind of background, a united background, which when it breaks, they describe things like losing the ground from underneath our feet, as if the earth is bottomed out.
It's like an earthquake,
as though we have no ontological home. Or as if we've been split in two, like an atom split in two. And so these are the words they use. It's very striking.
Yes. And the reason I want to pick up on Alex now at this very point is that, Alex, you were in college when your parents divorced. And typically when we talk about the impact of divorce on children, we're thinking about the little kids who are moving from one house to the next, or who endure their parents' multiple remarriages and things like that and have their childhood disrupted. But it was difficult for you, even though you were past that phase of your life. And believe me, Alex, you're not the first person I've heard this from, right? So I want you to tell us, describe if you can, why? What was going on in your heart when your mom, did somebody call you up and say, hey, guess what? We're getting divorced? Or, just tell us how did they tell you, and what impact did it have when you first heard it?
Yeah. So I had this, happy, intact childhood. Now I'm the oldest of 6 children. And so my youngest sibling, who was 16 years younger than me, was 4 at the time. So a lot of my younger siblings have had to do this back and forth dynamic all this time. But I left for college from an intact family. We had all gone to Catholic school. My mom was a Catholic school teacher. We prayed the rosary together. My parents taught marriage prep and NFP classes. Everyone saw us as this, big, happy Catholic family, like a paragon almost. And so we took some kind of pride in being the big Catholic family. And so it was shocking for sure to receive a phone call. This was my senior year. I received a phone call just kind of alerting me that they were separating. One of them decided, at no fault actually, to walk away and move to a different state, take a different job. I don't want to say too much more detail, but
Understood.
It was it kind of came out of nowhere, produced a lot of anxiety, as you could probably imagine. It made college graduation very difficult because both of them were there. And so, there wasn't the, taking a picture of me with, mom and dad on either side of me, proud family.
Right.
It was tense and awkward the entire time. So it was very difficult. And to the point of these deep metaphysical things, Andrew Root, in his book, The Children of Divorce, The Loss of Family is the Loss of Being, he talks about Marty McFly from Back to the Future, if you've seen that movie. So Marty McFly in 1985 goes back 30 years to 1955, and he goes to his young parents. They're in high school at the time, and they're dancing together at the ball. This is when their romance begins, and the bad guy is trying to keep them apart. And Marty McFly he looks at his hand and he starts to disappear. He starts to physically disappear because his parents aren't getting together in the past.
Crazy.
And so Andrew Root brings this up in his book, and it kind of puts words, an image to what it is that we experience as children of divorce when we hear that news.
Can I just quote Andrew Root? I was also going to bring him up because he says there's really a difference between the mere death of a parent, which is not, of course, a mere thing, but there's a difference between the death of a parent and the willed destruction of the unity of your parents. It's as if they wish they had never been united, and it results in this question. Well, did they wish that therefore I had never been?
Yes.
There's a deep uncertainty about the goodness of my existence once my parents put into question the goodness of their existence.
And if I could just add to that, when a parent dies, the parent is still a cherished member of the family.
Yes.
Right. I mean, their photo hangs on the wall. Everybody still talks about them in a warm manner. And one of the things I've seen over the years, and Alex, I bet you know just what I'm going to say here, somebody rewrites the history of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody rewrites the family history, and everybody's expected to go along with it. Well, he was really abusive all along. You kids just didn't see it, yada, yada, yada. And that loss of the family history, or the rewrite of the family history, that's really also disruptive. Alex, talk about that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I want to do this by kind of using this analogy of what happens when someone dies. So when someone dies, what happens, the whole family comes together. You can see the body and the casket. It's very difficult. You kind of kneel and say a prayer, shed a few tears. But there's always like that pin board at the funeral home where they have all the pictures of the happy memories of this person, and you point out, oh, do you remember when he put that hat on and he tripped? You recall all of these, really endearing memories.
Yes,
it's really hard, but at least you're acknowledging the good and you're feeling the loss of the good. And then you pray for the person, you celebrate the mass, and then you watch as they're lowered into the ground. And then everyone goes on. It's all very hard. It's all very emotional, but it's healthy because you acknowledge the good and you feel the loss. With divorce, it's very different. There is a death, not of a person, but of a living bond. But you don't grieve. You're not allowed to cherish those old memories. You're not allowed to even talk about them. Don't bring this up, this memory, because mom doesn't want to think about dad. Dad doesn't want to hear about mom. You're not allowed to, cry. You're not allowed to really grieve or mourn this death of this living bond. And you really just have to kind of go forward without any closure.
Yes. And I want to call attention to the fact, Alex, that you still don't want to talk too much about it publicly because these people are still alive. You don't want to hurt them. And if you're in a really chaotic situation and love feels fragile, you may become unloved if you're the one who brings it up, if you tell anybody. And so I just want to acknowledge for everyone, I want you to see, people, that part of the reason we don't hear more about the problems of children of divorce is that they're trying to protect their parents. And they're trying to protect what's left of their family. And so there's kind of a skew in all public discussion that we're more apt to hear about the jolly, happy face divorce than we are to hear about the difficulties of divorce. Go ahead, Alex. Looks like you wanted to respond to that.
No, yeah, absolutely. So I was afraid for a while, a couple of years, in fact, like I mentioned, of going on the retreat, because I was almost afraid that even just going on the retreat and seeking healing already presupposed, oh, my parents, you did so much damage to me and all of this. And I almost didn't seek healing out of an effort to protect them, because I love both of my parents. And so I eventually decided, there's probably a way to try to get better, to try to process these things and find a better way. And I can kind of figure out how this will work with my parents. And so by this point, I've been able to speak with each of my parents about the healing that I have found, and they're both very happy to see that. So, that's not everyone's case, for sure.
Right. That's not everyone's case.
To really speak about it.
It does. I think that's really true. Margaret, did you want to chime in on this? It looked like you might have something to say.
Yeah, it's an intuition, again, that goes back to Monsignor Byrne, now Bishop Byrne, and that is, and very also close to my heart. I am not a child of divorce, but I like to say that all of us are in some sense children of broken marriages, and our children are also the fruit of broken marriages. I mean, we're all insufficiently married or not well married. We're all inflicting harm on our children, and harm has been inflicted on us. So my parents had what you call a bad marriage, and I'm very grateful that they didn't divorce. So I'm an inheritor of a marriage that, worked itself out to the point that at the end of my parents' life, they really rediscovered love. And that was very beautiful. But I remember it was the time I was becoming Catholic, and I had we were all sort of new adults, and there was a lot of outing of our parents' evils, of our parents'
Oh,
defects.
yes,
And
that was a big thing.
it was a big thing, and the idea was you're supposed to confront your parents because they've hurt you, and you just have to name it and all that. And I had this really clear sense that, having just become a Catholic, there was this mother called Mother Church and Mary, and that God the Father, and it kind of relieved my parents from the burden of being God. For me. And which is not at all to undermine or to minimize the wrongs that parents do their children, be it in the form of a bad marriage, be it in the form of a divorce. But there's also, for Christians, our parents are icons, which means they're not the prototype, they're not the origin. And so even in a broken situation, they can be a kind of, to cite a Cohen song, a crack in the wall. That crack or that brokenness can be the occasion to sort of seek what's more primal or what's more original. And that's certainly the idea behind our common work. And it's certainly in the name Recovering Origins. It's the idea of going through the origin of our parents to the ultimate origin, which our parents reflect, however badly. And it's also in the name of life-giving wounds that that God also descends into the world and pours a new water, a new generation, a new fatherhood, a new motherhood, a new affection into our lives, so that we're not defined by this brokenness. So it's paradoxical, because with all of these authors that we really like, we can say, yes, it's really, really bad, because your parents are effacing the image of God. And yet, because they are not God, and because God has entered the world, the wound is not definitive. It's not the definitive word on our lives.
Yes. It's not definitive. That's right. Margaret, I love what you're saying here, because everybody's imperfectly married. I like that in a way, because we're supposed to be an icon of Christ in the church. And we're not. I mean, we're never going to measure up to that. No. But the point of an icon is to see through the icon into the ultimate reality. That's the point of it. So I just want to thank you guys so very much, Alex Wolf and Dr. Margaret McCarthy. Thank you so much for being my guest on today's episode of the Dr. J Show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, as a child of divorce, it's good to get some insights this week on how we can heal, especially as we lean into God more through the process. I am Ace McKay. You're listening to Catholics Coast to Coast. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to join the Rome Boys as they are back answering your questions from the mailbag. We're going to understand better about the Mass, relationships, marriage, and more when we come back with Catholics Coast to Coast.
The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
Yeah, this has been fun so far. It's the third time. And,
sure is.
Yeah. And Chris is still on the mend, but he is doing well.
Super close. Almost made it tonight.
Yeah, he almost made it tonight, but still feeling a little under the weather, or under the knife. I don't know what you call it. So yeah, no, hopefully he'll be back with us next time.
Exactly.
But tonight we're going to do another Q&A. Maybe next time when he comes back, we'll pick a subject.
There you go.
I'm kind of interested in doing
let him roll, man. Give him the mic.
That's right. We'll sit back and let him answer all the questions.
That'll be good. So we did have a couple of questions that people asked us after Facebook Live, or we missed one, or whatever else. So
I'm not sure how we missed it.
It can't be. Get it? Or is your entire world just crashing down all around you? All right, that's enough. Yeah!
But yeah, I kind of remember that. Let me see if I pull it up.
Dana.
Yeah, Dana asked, what is your advice for keeping a strong connection with your spouse? This is, coming from a marriage therapist. You're really asking us? No. We should be asking you this question.
Yes.
Actually, we know the answer to that question because you have a book written on it.
Yeah, which is awesome.
365 dates.
Exactly.
It takes you a whole year to read that book.
It depends also on the answer. If you have kids, young kids, or lots of kids, and where you're at in your marriage, right? Because it's just changed over the years. You agree? Like,
sure.
So when it was the beginning, when there was hardly, just you and your wife, it's easier.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you have multiple things going on and jobs and all that kind of stuff,
multiple kids, the aspect of or the gift of time becomes very limited.
Mm-hmm. But you and your wife have been going on dates each week.
Well, see, that's kind of the bonus of where we're at in our age.
Old enough kids to...
Yeah, we've got teenagers that are live-in babysitters now, which is great. So, during those times when they were little, there was not much time for connecting. But now that they're older, we've started doing a date night every night. So ever since Rome.
Every night?
No way.
Oh, sorry.
That'd be cool.
Wow, that'd be crazy.
Man, you guys are masters of this.
That. No, since the Rome, every week.
So May, June, July, and August.
Every week, once a week, we'll go out on a date. Now, it's not always on Friday night. Most of the time it is.
That's the goal.
But if something pops up on Friday, we might do it on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, whenever we have an open day.
And if you raise them right, your older ones, then they are mini parents anyway, so you trust them, right?
Right.
And they do a good job.
Our two oldest girls, they're just other mamas for the younger ones, especially the boys. So, they're the authority of the house when we're not there.
Excellent. Yeah.
Sometimes I have to remind them, hey, I'm the dad. I'm right here.
Exactly.
But that's okay.
And I think dates, definitely each day to reconnect with your spouse. So whether that's go outside, for us, we just do laps around our house, that kind of thing, just walk or whatever else. Sure. Or just close the room door. Guys, we need 15 minutes, just something to where you connect again. Because if that communication breaks down, then everything, this is the most important relationship besides God, that the connection goes with mom and dad, husband and wife. So I think we struggle on making it every week. That'd be a great goal. Once a month is our goal. Sure. We hope to do that, but you can kind of sense, though, the family can sense like when is a time. Well, mom and dad need to go out.
Are we there yet?
We get there when we get there.
And usually the kids are like, go ahead, we need you to, because they realize how important the marriage is too.
Yeah, we've noticed that too. There's been a couple of weeks that popped up in there and it didn't look like we were going to be able to make it. And we told the kids, I guess we're going to skip this week. And they were like, no, y'all are going to go.
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, we'll go catch a flick, or most of the time we just pick a restaurant and we'll go sit in there. I have to say, too, at first, it was difficult kind of.
To get ideas or?
Well, there's only so much you can do in town. It seems like in Angelo, the only thing you can do is eat, drink, and watch a movie.
Right. Yeah.
But I would say just the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of tough because we don't have kids around us demanding their attention.
Yeah.
Mom, mommy, mama,
What?
And
you just picture that older couple that's at a restaurant and they're not really saying a whole lot. Like, I hope it never works to be that.
That was kind of what we were at first. Like, what do we talk about? Other than the kids, and they're not here. So, do we really want to talk about the kids?
That's the most important thing, is actually sometimes not to talk about the kids at all. I mean, maybe eventually get to that, but it's about that relationship between you two. Yeah.
It's not so much difficult and now, but at first, the first few weeks, it was like
staring at each other like, okay, now what?
What are we supposed to talk about? Maybe we should do a double date and have somebody to talk to.
Well, it's probably that experimenting of redating again, because you did it a while ago. Then you had a bunch of kids, and then
probably didn't do it right the first place.
Well, who knows, right? You can always improve everything. So reconnect. I mean, obviously spiritually, like as our family, praying together each evening or going to adoration or mass. One great thing that our neighboring parish in Ballinger has a Saturday morning mass. So my kids are usually all sleeping at that point. So we get in the car, we go to mass together. We're able to talk both ways and communing, and then we go to mass together. That's just something I look forward to each week. So that's kind of our mini date. At least looking forward to that.
That's a cool kind of a date. Going to mass.
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
I mean, if you could, You'll hit a 6 o'clock evening mass on your way out to,
Sure.
start your date off with mass.
Exactly. Yep.
So we're here doing another Facebook Live, and so we're here just answering questions. If you got any, put them in the comments, and we'll get to them if I don't miss them. We were just covering a comment that we missed last time. Sorry,
Yep.
Dana.
And then we had another question about basically reverence. I think a lot of people appreciate that we're big promoters of reverence and liturgy, and they were just kind of frustrated about how people dress in church. And then they went on to say someone that was an extraordinary minister of communion and how they were dressed. And so I can sympathize with you because, it's important that we dress our best, our Sunday best,
I make this look good.
For the liturgy, especially if you're up there by the altar and serving in that capacity. So, but over the years, look back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, how everybody was like suit and tie and super fancy and everything else, and how we've slowly kind of gotten away from that. So, I see what you're saying, and at the same time, I'm like, but they're there, because I was that Catholic in college that I sat in the front row, but in my t-shirt and shorts on Sunday Mass, and I'm like, that's the place that I was at. And now I'm like, no, I need to dress up because I realize the reverence of it and the importance of it, and as a witness to the whole church and my family. So I see that now. So we need to be grateful that they're there, and at the same time, we need to do some catechesis and education. And if people love the Lord, they will naturally want to do that. Yeah. So, it's a conversation with people and having that relationship with them to be able to ask them politely and talk to them about it.
Well, I think it's interesting you brought up the fact that back in the day they were all wearing suit and ties. Saw an Easter video from my grandfather. I inherited them after when he passed away, and I was watching one of them. And, they were all decked out on Easter. Suit, tie, the whole 9 yards. They had us all decked out. But we don't do that anymore because, as a culture, we don't do that anymore.
True.
Who wears a suit and tie anymore? That's...
They're saying like millennials and even the younger ones are like basically in the future here are going to be working from home, and just they like it that way. And so, why dress up if you can work from home in your pajamas and you really don't have to leave your house? You can order whatever you want, whenever you want, and then have it delivered to you.
Isn't that crazy? And that seems like what they want you to do. Don't leave your house.
Yes. We're made for community. We're made for relationship.
No, we're all in this together.
We need to get out.
But they're all... That's Father. Interesting you brought that up because we were listening to Father Mike's Catechism in a Year. He was talking about community. He brought up the idea that when solitary confinement was invented, they invented it with the idea that they were protecting the inmates.
Sure.
Like, okay, we're going to make sure everybody is separated so that everybody doesn't harm each other. And they just invented solitary confinement. And so they were all, but they found out later that when they were all by themselves for a long period of time, they went nuts. They went crazy. So the opposite effect, now we have that as a punishment. But when it first started, it was as to protect them.
Right.
It was the idea.
Right.
But they, like you said, we were made for community. So are we creating a society of solitary confinement in your own home?
Wow. Good point.
You just blew my mind.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. We're made to get out.
I remember my grandparents, they dressed up for everything, even to go to McDonald's. So that generation did that. That older generation did that. And as we've progressed through, we maybe wear slacks and a nice shirt.
You go to Walmart now, people are in their pajamas.
You can't unsee it once you've seen it, can you?
No, you can't unsee it. It's nightmare fuel. That'll be with me forever.
Exactly. So we have to consider the culture, but that's no excuse, and we need to strive for that everybody's decked out for Christ. Because if we believe he's there, he deserves our best. But he also is understanding of our weaknesses, so there's a catch-22 there. So.
Sure. So no questions yet, but if y'all could check in, let us know where you're at. I won't say your last name, but I'll not mention your first name. But give us a shout out. Tell us where you're at. Your name. That'd be nice.
Yep.
So again, Chris couldn't be with us again tonight, but hopefully we'll have him back in the studio.
What are some upcoming episodes we have coming up here, Joe?
Okay. So last time I lied to you, I thought Father Tim Hyder was going to come out last time, but it ended up being the Sisters of Salesians of St. John Bosco because one of their programs, that Fiat program, was happening in September. So I moved that up first. So that was last Fridays because of their program. Chad, We got a message from Chad. Chad says divorce advice.
Oh,
interesting. Okay, I'll finish your question. So the
now they're coming in.
Yeah, now they're coming in. Next week this Friday, tomorrow will be Father Tim's first video, and then the following week will be Father Tim's second video.
Amazing priest, yeah.
Yes, and then third week is going to be. Well, it'll be a recording from our last Facebook Live. It'll be a presentation of that one with a few added movie clips to it.
Good.
For some of your entertainment. Nice. And then the following that is your bike ride.
Woohoo!
Yeah, Tony did a little mini pilgrimage.
This guy is amazing. He's climbing in ditches and going across the road and filming from all angles.
I was just trying to get hit by a car.
There you go. Or tries to amuse yourself a little bit and not be bored as you're waiting for me, huffing and puffing and going up hills.
It was fun. It was fun. It was nice that morning. It was early in the morning, so
I was
it was
just
nice
glad
and cool.
I actually was close to the time and actually a little early than what I expected, so it wasn't 7 hours longer. So, but 33 miles. It was a great number because Jesus lived 33 years. So
wow, that's cool.
You go. Yeah. So
that should
on the
take
bike.
you 33 minutes.
No. Far from it.
Okay, so Mary from Florida. I can't say that for Ocala. Ocala. Ocala.
Gesundheit.
Ocala, Florida is here and listening. Thanks, Mary. So Chad is asking about divorce advice, but then he says anointing of the sick. You're going to have to be more specific, Chad. I'm sorry. Divorce advice about anointing of the sick, or no?
We do have an episode we're hopefully going to get to in our Faith Formation series. We're on the sacraments, but on the anointing of the sick. Yep. And that's important that people take advantage of that sacrament. And take advantage in the sense it's there for people that are going to have to go through surgery, are elderly. You can receive it multiple times. But I think a lot of people think that that's the sacrament of you have to be on your deathbed. You're about to check out, call the priest, And so it is something that I had back surgery years ago. Who knows how it was going to turn out? So I got anointed, and I'm deathly afraid of needles and like drawing blood and that kind of stuff. And so I had such peace. And I attribute that to that grace of that sacrament that Father Ted in Spearville, Kansas, gave me the anointing of the sick.
Okay, so Chad's asking, what is the anointing of the sick?
So highly encouraged, the oil is blessed by our bishop. It's put on the forehead and the hands. If you correct me if I'm right, it's late tonight. It's something like that.
Something like that.
It used to be like a bunch of different spots on us, lips and ears and everything else, to bless us. And don't be afraid to ask your priest, just like don't be afraid to ask to go to confession and receive that beautiful
a lot of time, the anointing of the sick usually is done on your deathbed.
Yeah. It used to be called extreme unction because it was for your deathbed.
But it's also encouraged, like if you're going to go into surgery or anything like that, then that's...
like if you got cancer and maybe you had it for 10 years, you can keep receiving the sacrament. Who knows? God could heal you.
Yeah, he says, why does the anointment smell so good?
Oh,
it does, don't
that's
it?
some good stuff. Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's like a baby that receives the chrism oil, right? Like you don't want to wash that off.
It's that chrism oil. That oil just is really
the oil of the sick for that sacrament. Yeah.
Mary says, a lady friend of mine was asked for a divorce by her husband, and she remained true to her marriage even while suffering by living alone. Well, God bless her.
God bless her. Yes, yes, because it's till death do us part, right? Mm-hmm. And the graces that are received there for both of the couple, the spouses, is amazing. And marriage is not always easy.
We're at the threshold of hell.
Yeah, there's definitely ups and downs and sufferings, but we're called, when we say I do, it's forever.
Forever. Forever. Forever. Forever.
It's until death do us part. And a lot of people in our culture don't get that anymore. So, young people need to be aware of that. If I'm considering marriage with this person, I'm engaged, or if you said I do, it's done. It is official. Same way with the priesthood and religious life. When you take those vows, when you're before the bishop at the altar and you've consecrated yourself and the priest anoints you, that's forever.
Forever. Forever.
And
I tell my girls that if you decide you want to date somebody, if you don't see yourself marrying them, don't waste your time.
What's the point?
Yeah, dating is a job interview.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is what I tell them.
Help each other to get holier.
And thing to remember too, with your friend who was asked to divorce by her husband, she can still receive the Eucharist.
I was not aware of that.
Correct.
Right. As long as she's living true to her marriage.
Yes.
I would encourage
that is a lot
her
of confusion in that area.
Yeah, I would encourage her to look into an annulment. But,
yes.
but she really, if she's going to live that way, live by living alone, suffering alone, she can still receive the sacrament of the Eucharist because she's still being true to her marriage.
Right, right. Yeah, faithful to her vows. Yes.
Very good. Absolutely. That was a good one.
And then the first question about divorce, did we get that, or we're just kind of not sure about it?
He had some divorce,
Of course, we never, of course, in the Catechism, it encourages that divorce in the Catechism says is a scourge on society. My parents went through divorce. I get it. I understand what pain it caused. If it's already happened, God willing, the annulment process would be something in the back of your mind that you want to get started on. It is something that obviously happens. It affects kids a lot. It affects both the couple. And the goal is to get reconciled with God in the sense that if you're called to be married in the future, that annulment would be at the top of your list there. So,
and I think also too, when you're talking about divorce and annulment, annulment is not the Catholic divorce.
Yeah,
it's not. It is to find out, just to kind of give a brief summary of it, it's just to find out if a sacrament was present during the ceremony.
And it's saying the sacramental bond didn't take place.
Yeah, if it never took place, then it was never really a sacramental marriage to begin with.
In the eyes of God, they weren't married. Yeah. Right.
So, but there's lots of factors that go into that. And too many to discuss. And really, we would need a canon lawyer for that.
And we're hopefully going to do, a faith formation on that. And it's probably going to be a long one because there's just so much.
We might have to do a two-parter on that.
So many nuances there and so much,
I hope that answers your question on that one. Yep. Miss Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you. Need those prayers.
Yes, ma'am.
Gee, do you think it could work?
It's got to work. It's our only hope.
Thank you for that. I forgot to hit record on the camera.
Oh. Want to do that?
And that for that matter.
Okay. Joe will be taking a leave of absence now.
A little housekeeping. It's only been 2 weeks since we did this last, and I'm already forgetting all my jobs.
You had one, Joe. Just the one.
Kids, you have a job. It's hot outside. It's late in the day. I think people understand. So, but we do appreciate your questions, and thanks for watching us here on Facebook Live. Joe and I have enjoyed it so far, doing it a few times, and hope to keep doing it. Our goal and setting on our calendars to meet every couple weeks and record episodes. A lot of people ask us that question, like, do you meet every week like we used to for a while? Meet once a month and just knock out at least 4 episodes so we can do that. And then we went to Italy and took a little break and had a lot of episodes from that. So now we're trying to every
took
2
a break.
Good one. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. That's the truth, isn't it? That's true.
What's up, Bruce? Bruce says hi.
Oh, yeah. He's a big fan.
He's always on here.
Thanks for sharing our stuff there, Bruce. He's got swag. We opened up a swag store.
Oh,
we can mention that. Yeah,
dude.
We can add that to our videos, too.
Heck yeah.
Go to
check us out. Go to
romeboys.org,
romeboys.org, and check out our swag page.
Yeah. Yes, it's some good stuff.
Go on there and got all kinds of stuff that we don't have currently in our.
We have shirts, and we have pop sockets, and we have some koozies. But other than that place has teddy bears. I mean, who wants a Rome Boys teddy bear? I don't, but anyway.
No, I don't. No. But they have ball caps, too. But I haven't ordered one yet. I'll have to look at those.
Yeah, lots of hoodies and kids' clothes. I think a lot of people have been ordering kids' clothes because we haven't had those sizes. And then there's so many different colors. And
you can partnered up with this website that does all that stuff for us.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of women wanted different colors and more feminine colors. There you go. It's all there. So, yeah. And you can customize, like you can even go up to the shirt and add things and take things out and change colors. And so if you see the actual picture there, you can switch things up. And
I'll have to go play around in there a little bit more.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Been doing that much.
Yeah.
All right. So later on tonight, we do have an interview scheduled with
Father Edward Looney.
Looney. We have his book out?
Yes, we do. Right over here.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Okay, so we're going to interview him.
How they love Mary.
How do they love Mary? 28 life-changing stories of devotion to Our Lady. Father Edward Looney.
We did like the very beginning. Remember that? We did an episode on why Catholics don't worship Mary. It was very beginning of our days with Rome Boys.
Like one of our very first videos.
And then maybe we did. Have we done a faith formation on Mary? I think we have, but it's been a while.
Who's your mama?
So, there you go.
Who's your daddy was
was on God the Father.
Yeah. I'm just thinking we haven't had a lot on Mary. So October, maybe that'll come out, but that's the month of the Rosary. So that'd be cool to have a little props to Our Lady with, he's a great Marian theologian and young priest in Wisconsin. So lots of fun.
Bruce says to Our Lady, we need Father Larry back. He was so good. We need to have Father Larry back. Well, I agree.
We got Steve Ray coming in December.
We do. We have Steve Ray coming in December. But we do keep him,
Texas.
Yeah. So, put that on your calendar.
December 12th and 13th. Our Lady of Guadalupe, December 12th. So there you go.
Awesome.
Come listen to Steve Ray.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about Mary there as well.
That's true.
But we do keep in contact with Father Larry. So
Yep. He's busy.
Yeah, he is very busy.
We think we're busy.
But he's starting a new series as well on his website where he's going to start doing interviews. So that'll be looking for that on his Reason for Our Hope. So be looking for that.
He's bold, man.
Oh yeah,
he's bold. He's real. He's Catholic. That's why we had him on.
Oh, absolutely.
and brought him to our parish.
To Rowena. I mean,
exactly.
That's amazing. He's kind of gotten the ball rolling for these other, I think, for guys such as Steve to come and really kind of getting us out there. You know, getting some. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard of Rowena.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, I was in. Several weeks ago, we went to that conference in San Antonio, and I met some of the gurus at Guadalupe Radio, and that's what they talk about. It's like, we heard of Rowena. Man, there's something going on over there. And they keep talking about how every time they have a telethon, asking for money, they always get calls from
generous people
from Rowena, from our area. So good job, guys.
Yeah.
It was funny. My mom was actually watching or listening on the radio one time when they were doing one of their telethons.
Yes.
And they said that over the radio. It's like, we got another donation from Rowena. Man, something's going on over there. What is going on? There's something.
So
wild.
She called in from Alphen?
Well, she was on the phone donating.
Okay.
And she was listening to them in the background. And she goes, something's going on. Wait a minute. There's a group over there. Oh, yeah, the Rome Boys. The Rome Boys over there in Rowena.
Well, they didn't say the Rome Girls or something.
Yeah, right. No, the Rome Boys. And there's three guys, and they talk about the faith. And I think one of them's a pharmacist. Yeah, Joe the pharmacist. Joe the farmer. Yeah. Oh, Father's on. The Bible study at St. Joseph focus on the walk with Blessed Virgin Mary. We got 36 people signed up.
All right. Sweet. Yes, Bible studies are good.
Cool.
Catholics can do Bible studies, people.
Okay, Mary says you pronounce it Okalua.
Thanks.
Okalu. Okalu.
You can always teach us something.
Known as the horse capital of the world. Really?
Okay.
I was not aware of that.
Nice.
Cool.
That's fun.
Okalu.
Did anybody see our billboard? Our billboard, meaning the 100 people that donated to the billboard, right? In Midland, Texas, on the highway is up.
It's up. Sweet.
One person said they wanted to take a picture of it, but they were getting tailgated by a semi on the interstate.
And the taxi's revving.
And so they didn't, so they're safe. But they saw the billboard because it's on the interstate. It's going to get a lot of people seeing it. Yeah, millions and millions and millions. So
don't have a wreck, please.
Yes. So Midland, Texas, Brownwood, Texas are two latest billboards. 7 billboards up. So
take the service road. Take a picture from the service road.
There you go. Now everybody's been told.
Great insights this week. Thanks for your questions. If you want to find out more about the Rome Boys or any and all of our podcasts that are happening at Podcast Central, just go to EWTN.com/radio. And as we do each week, we're going to check in with our Word on the Word and get some insights into the readings from today's Mass.
The responsorial psalm for this Sunday is, "Give the Lord glory and honor." One way we do this is by going to Mass on Sunday.
There's another line in this psalm that makes me think of going to church. It says, "Bring an offering and come into his courts." It makes me think of how I prepare for Mass on Sunday.
What do you mean?
Well, think about whenever you go out with friends to a nice restaurant or to a sporting event. Do you take extra time to get ready, like put on a nice outfit or pack sunscreen and a hat?
I guess so, yeah.
Well, the questions I'm asking myself are, if I take extra time to get ready for certain events, do I take extra time to prepare for Mass so I can give the best of myself to God? Like, is both my mind and heart ready to encounter the Lord?
Those are great questions to think about. And we challenge you to take more time to mentally prepare for Mass this weekend. Try going to the church a little bit early so that you can pray before Mass begins.
Basically, try not to rush out the door like I did this morning. And we'll see you here next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Always great to hear insights that can help us to understand today's readings, or anytime there is a word on the word. You can find out more about them and also other podcasts at Podcast Central. Just go to EWTN.com/radio, and you can join me each and every week as we definitely take a look at what's happening. What are people talking about, and how can you join the conversation? Find out more when you log on this week. I'm Ace McKay. I'll see you next week. Remember to let God define who you are, and we'll do it again with Catholics Coast to Coast.